Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back. This is Tim Harris, and this is, of course, your favorite weekly automotive enthusiast podcast. This is Full Throttle Talk. So without any further delay, I want to welcome my friends to the podcast and our co-hosts to the podcast, Paul Kramer, Dave Van Epps, and of course, Casey Parkin. So guys, let's get rolling. Let's start out with a question I always like to start out with. What is the coolest thing? We're going to make Paul go last. What is the coolest thing that happened in the last week in your automotive lives that you'd like to share with the listeners? It has to be the coolest thing. So Casey, you can go first.
Slow car slow first. I spent the past week in the United States Virgin Islands on St. John. And St. John's a really interesting place because you drive American cars, but being that it was, I guess, had British influence, you drive on the left side of the road. So you drive left-hand drive cars on the left side of the road. So I had constant reminders from my wife, thankfully. And there's even a sticker on the windshield that says keep left of this Jeep that we rented. And I did manage to slightly overheat the Jeep, which was pretty great. Brand new Jeep, 800 miles. But huge elevation change, really terrible roads. Every time you go around a corner, there's a donkey or 400 goats or a mongoose or really crazy lizards and all kinds of stuff. But really, it was super rad because it really made you think while driving. You really had to be on your toes and just remember to stay on the left-hand side of the road. And then yesterday, fast car slow, I sent a message to you guys. I finally had the opportunity to drive a 991 Speedster somewhat in anger. I've never done that before. Just slow kind of piddling around here and there. But yesterday I was able to, you know, sympathetically enjoy a 991 Speedster, which to me, and this might sound a little bit sacrilegious, but I think previous to this, my favorite 991 was an R. This might beat the R. Um, Late model 992 GT3 motor, individual throttle bodies, the only car they put that in. But to steal Driving While Awesome's term, the sense of occasion of that car with the top down and all the noise, I think makes it peak 991.
Oh, I totally agree. Casey, let me add to that. You will know more than me. All the special parts. You mentioned the 992 GT3 motor that car has with the individual throttle bodies, but it also has 911R parts on it. It has carbon fiber front fenders, carbon fiber hood. There's a lot of really cool best of parts bin stuff on the Speedster that people don't acknowledge. And the very fact that 2016 Rs and other equivalency of convertible car GT3 products or GT products sell for so much more. In my opinion, it seems like yours as well. The GT3 Speedster, I'm sorry, the 991.2 Speedster is going to, without a doubt, is even at 400,000 to 425,000, which is where they sell. Those cars are absolutely undervalued if you compare to a normal, similar, hard to obtain product. What do you think?
I would absolutely agree. I had very tempered expectations in the mid-Atlantic. I'm not sure, Dave, if you're experiencing this or Tim, but it is insanely hot here. It's like
Yes,
100
it is.
with full humidity here in the DC area. So it's been pretty cruddy. So yesterday I got out pretty early and I've got it's like a 14-mile stretch of roads that are a little bit of kind of two-lane highway and then all back roads. And honestly, I was so smitten. It was, I'm rarely surprised when driving a car. This really did check all the boxes.
How did you compare that? Sorry, guys, we'll get to this. Is the Casey's basically talking my love language right now because I love those cars too. So, Casey, how did you compare that to your experience in the 718 RS?
Uh, if I had the two, I'd sell the 718 RS.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
to
have,
me,
Tim,
to me,
didn't
it's
you,
all
Tim, sell
about.
your Speedster to get the 718 RS?
no, I have them both.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
it's the integration of, sorry for cutting you off. It's the size of the steering wheel of the Speedster is perfect. The weight of the shifter is perfect. The weight of the clutch pedal is perfect, and the weight of the flywheel is perfect. And that, with the slightly, I mean, as we've discussed, not that I've driven an RS Spyder with the roof back, but the noise and everything working together, plus the fact that it's a stick shift, I just nothing. I'm assuming that if they build a 992 Speedster, they'll probably make the sauce a little bit different, but that car hits so well on so many levels. It's just so right.
I'll tell you guys this too, because I think this is interesting. I was putting anti-gravity batteries in the 17, the, the Spyder RS and in the Speedster. They're way better batteries overall for the weight, which is insane. They don't come with, those types of batteries, but the build quality of the Speedster was noticeably better than the 718, which I wasn't expecting, but let me give you a specific thing. So when you pull, well, Dave will know because he's in the tearing cars apart and putting them back together business. But
Not
when you
new
take
ones
the,
normally, though.
yeah, that's true. But when you take just the battery cover, to replace the battery, and you look, the 718 isn't painted on the inside. So you can see the primer. They don't paint all the way around. Whereas if you start picking over on the Speedster, which I have, and you start, just poking around, they did so much more of a meticulous job assembling that car if you just measure it by the amount of paint that they put on it. So I just think that's interesting. And the overall construction quality, at least to me, and Casey, you'll know more than me because you were in that business a lot longer, definitely feels superior than the 718, but I love them both. I wouldn't sell either.
As Paul saw, those cars, was your RS Spyder built in Stuttgart?
I don't know.
I mean, I would assume that they would come across the same line and use the same paint facility, but I'd have to double check. I wonder if I can double check. I have the VIN of the RS Spyder. I can see if it's got an S in it for Stuttgart.
Oh my gosh.
While Dave is talking, I'll check.
All right, Dave, you're up next. So what's the coolest
Oh,
thing that happened in the last week in your automotive life other than getting that stellar 1972 blue RSR for sale?
did you see those pictures though? Those
I
pictures came
didn't.
out beautifully.
I only saw one. Send the others when you can.
Oh, I sent you a folder, but we'll talk about
Oh,
that
okay.
offline
Okay.
here. For me, it was kind of one of these bucket list check the box items. As you can see, if you're on YouTube over my shoulder here, I somehow the stars aligned and I actually was given an allotment or an allocation, I should say, to purchase a GT3 RS 2025. And what is over my shoulder is pretty similar to what I have spec'd, but it was a bit of a head fake. The whole thing was a bit of a head fake. Brand new dealer, wonderful new dealer here in the Charlotte area called Porsche Charlotte Northlake. Brand new, unbelievable facility, just state of the art, fantastic facility. I meet the general manager over, at a meeting. We chit chat. He tells me he's got a car that isn't allocated and that I could have this car after we chat for a bit. And I'm like, holy cow, seriously, this is like the only unallocated GT3 RS in the country. I show up. They actually, and I'll show you here if you happen to be on, hang on, I'll get it. They had me come over and actually unwrap this car. Now, in the end, this is a good thing because the car that I'm ordering, I think, is a better spec than this car that they were going to give me. But the car in question that I'm unwrapping over my shoulder here is did not have the YSOC package on it. So here it was going to be in my hands, and they told me on a Thursday that I could have the car. They had me over to unwrap it on Thursday. I get a call on Friday when I'm driving to Highlands telling me that the owner's going to keep this car. So it kind of got pulled back from me. It was in my hands and then pulled back from me. And then ultimately, they called me later that day and said, we've got an allocation for you for an August build that I will be able to get in October. So I have spec'd the car. I think I still have a few more days to lock in. But one of the things that's interesting on these cars is that the higher up in the chain you go, the less options you seem to have to choose from. A GT3 has got a far greater selection of options than a GT3 RS does, including color, which really kind of was disappointing to me. I couldn't do paint to sample because it's too late in the production of the car. So I had to pick from the 6 colors that they offered. Love to get your guys' opinion on this. Obviously red, white, black. I think it's GT silver, a gray, and another silver, Arctic silver, I think. So I went with GT silver. I don't know what you guys think.
I mean, I think
So
it's a safe bet.
Yeah, Casey, you have some insights because you've spec'd over a dozen GT3 RSs for your clients and helped them do that. So what suggestions would you have to Paul, given what you just learned about some of his challenges with speccing this?
So, so Dave, you're running into a couple of things. I'm assuming you're at the tail end of production for GT3 RS.
Yep.
So if you were to do something like paint to sample, traditionally earlier in the production cycle, a dealership can request your car to be adjusted or moved to an allocation month that would accept paint to sample. But being that you're up against the end, I mean, you still got a lottery ticket. It's just for 500 million, not a billion. So be very happy about that. And as far as options are concerned, you are correct. When it comes to the higher end vehicles, the amount of options on the sheet are significantly less. So you are not going to have the ability to do all the whoop-de-doo stitching and changing of different trims and such on the inside of the car. Basically, with a GT3 RS, you pick wheel color, graphic color, what if you want to Visoc package or if you don't want a Visoc package, and then if you want the hood and roof painted, and then pick your colors. As far as colors are concerned, I'm always, and we talked about this before, I like communication colors. I honestly think that majority of the early RSs were built in white over white with red accents, or the real early ones like the 918 buyers, they got the tribute to RS cars. So those cars were white with green wheels and green livery, which is really cool. I mean, Spike Ferriston did his paying homage to the white and blue
Blue.
cars.
Yeah.
But for me, given what you have available to you as far as options, this is the first time that this occurred. Actually, I take that back. In water cooled era, to me, I think this is the first time this occurred, but up until recently, all cup cars that were delivered were white.
Hmm.
So I remember seeing, I think Lee Keen posted a photo right when 992 Cup cars came out, which is effectively what your car is. Um, those cars are all delivered in silver. So
Mhm.
for me, I think I like white and I like silver because I think GT3 RS, I think race car.
Sure.
I'm a big fan of painting the hood and roof on the car. I care for two, I care for three GT3 RSs currently. One's a white and red. One is the one I took European delivery of. That's a all Golf blue to match the other Golf blue lightweight that I take care of. And that Golf blue car has painted hood and painted roof, which back then, when you talk about options, we went through Porsche special wishes and we were going because back then Vistock cars required you to have um, a uh, a carbon roof and carbon hood if you did paint a sample. And to go get those painted, it was a huge amount of money. It was like $30,000. And Paul will tell us about that here in a little bit. But basically, anything that changes how much time it takes Porsche to build a car, they just jack the price up.
And I
Yeah,
So,
the
I
paint.
agree with Casey
Go ahead.
with
Go
the
ahead, Paul.
I would say I agree with Casey. I think it's sort of a baller stealth wealth move to have the Visoc package and then just paint over the carbon fiber. Like that to me, I think is so cool. And I would do
and
that in a heartbeat if you can.
I think it's a lot more timeless to have less exposed carbon fiber. I don't know what, hopefully Porsche carbon fibers improve, but if anybody has looked at a Carrera GT and sees the carbon fiber in a Carrera GT. Not that I'm expecting this, but it's all yellow on those cars now. So the less amount of exposed carbon fiber, I think, as Paul said, it's a stealth wealth thing. I also care for a Golf blue car that does not have a painted roof or hood. And the painted roof or hood on that car just really makes it look awesome. So regardless of what you choose, I mean, you've won the lottery.
Well,
You've put 50, 75 grand in your pocket. You will want to talk to them about price protection from tariffs. I have no idea where that is. I'm not in the world anymore, but I do know that cars that were ordered and being delivered, I think, don't quote me on this, are price protected. I'm not sure about things in the future, so you will want to have that discussion with your dealer just to make sure you know what you're ending up with.
Dave, are you doing
sure.
European delivery?
No, no, I'm taking it here.
Okay.
But it would be lovely, but and I'm sure Paul can talk through all of that. I think it would be lovely, but
I'm
we'll
teeing
see. We'll see.
I'm teeing Paul up. So Paul,
Yeah,
what's the
there you go.
coolest thing? I know you've had a really boring past couple of weeks
It
sitting
is.
around watching Wheel of Fortune reruns and bologna sandwiches, your normal lifestyle.
Yeah.
So what's the coolest thing that happened in the last 2 weeks in your life?
I mean, obviously, as the podcast we did a couple weeks ago, we were at the beginning, front end of our Germany trip. We'd been there for a few days. I think we were hiding out in the Mercedes museum and um, confusing and irritating them all at once. But since then, we've come back from Germany. We were there for 15 days. And yes, it was the dream. I call it a carcation. It was the dream experience. But what was so unusual about it was not just weather, but we timed stuff so perfectly in terms of what we saw, what we'd be at a place, and a special event that happens once a year is on that day. And, when we went to Roof, we were supposed to, Alois and his wife and daughter, they were all gone and supposed to be in England for an event. We get there. Not only are they there, but Tony Hatter had called ahead and friends had called ahead. So I felt guilty. I think he thought we were more special than we were because I mean we spent 5 hours at Roof and it just went on and on. And from uh I met, let's see if you can see, that's Hans Peter Porsche. That's his grandson, I think Tomas. And it wasn't just hi, shake hands. It was like have a good conversation with them. I spent a half hour talking to Ferdy Porsche, and I think I got an invite to the ice race in February, which will be in Montana and will be very cool. I'm sure you guys know about it. It just, the BMW Classic, this just came back from Le Mans. Like this was on Tuesday, or yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday, and this was at Le Mans for the whole race, and it was sort of sitting, if you can kind of see on the pallet that they shipped it back, sort of. I don't know if you can see it over here down the corner. And the amount of people that went nuts over this car, and it's just sitting in the corner of this warehouse that BMW has, 100 cars, which is a tenth of their collection. So yeah, it just went on and on and on of what we saw, who we met.
Paul, go
Um,
back one, go back two now. That's a model. That's not a real picture, right? By the way,
this
guys, if
right
you're not,
here,
no, one more. If you guys aren't watching us on YouTube, you're missing out on that. Is that a real picture you took?
yeah, that is Hans
Jeez.
Peter Porsche's museum, which I only bought one thing, and it was his shirt. I didn't really buy souvenirs, but this museum was, I don't know if it was so cool because it wasn't just cars. I mean, you could tell this guy is a serious collector of toys, and he's a hoarder, and he built a museum around it, which I studied museum curation in college, and what was so cool about it was it was a small museum right on the Austrian-German border, and it was so well designed for his hobby. And he built this giant model train set. Um, and it's probably in a 5,000 square foot room, and it's probably 20 feet tall, and it simulates in, I think, a half hour, a 24-hour period. Gets dark.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
video screens. I mean, there's guys walking around picking up cars, and it's not just trains. It's like these little lorries with headlights and brake lights moving around on magnetic strips. I mean, it mind-boggling, mind-boggling. So yeah, I and the nice thing is I had this sort of plan where we flew into Frankfurt, leaving out of Munich, 4 or 5 major areas, from Nürburgring to Stuttgart to Munich to Austria, and filling in the gaps in between. And we left some flexibility. But my friend Torsten, who he designed our logo on our hat. I've known him for 25 years. He's taken over Grant Larson's job. With special projects. So he did the Spirit of 70 project, that new green one you've seen, the olive neo, I think. And we hung out with the FLB group, which is like our group in it's all Porsche employees kind of hang out. And Casey, you would lose your mind because literally they have got so much stuff there that Porsche is going to throw away and they give it to them because they can't sell it to the public. They had Dave, you'll understand this. They had a cabinet with probably 100 scan tools going back to the earliest ones.
Okay.
Tons of scan. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like if you want to reprogram a 959, they've got that scan tool. They've got all the versions of the hammer. They've got and some of it doesn't work. And then they have engineers that work at Porsche. In this picture right here, that's Tony Hatter above my head. There's Tony Hatter to the right. He designed the 993, famously. He's retired 5 years now from Porsche. He was there for 35 years. He's now just his retirement project is working for RUF. So he helped set us up with RUF. But in this picture, we're watching the end of the start of Le Mans with the FLB guys, which stands for Flock. I can't remember. It's all German, but it's basically Friends of Air-Cooled Boxer Motors. Whatever Friends is in German, Lufke called Boxerem Motor. So while they were getting bored because the start was kind of delayed, him and Torsten decide to take us through Weissach, where the track is and the whole design center, which no one is allowed back there. And Tony knows the guard. It is dead silent because it's Saturday morning, start of Le Mans. Everyone's either watching it or at Le Mans. And he knows the security guard and he says, yeah, just drive around. Don't go in any buildings and put your cameras away. And we spent a half hour driving around. And Torsten is pointing to things that are covered in black, but you can kind of see him. He goes, that's a new GT2 RS, but you didn't see that. That's the electric Cayenne, but you didn't see that. That's this other project. And Tim, this will make you cringe. There was a row of 20 Spyder RSs lined up with look like auction numbers written on the windshield. He goes, that's death row. They're all getting crushed.
Oh man.
They're just it was mind-boggling. We saw parts of the track and then we park. And the funny thing is Tony's been there for 35 years. Torsten's been there for 20 years. And they're like, oh, you see that balcony right there? That's where the board fired Vita King, and which, it's funny to hear their perspective. Like, no, Vita King was the scene, really kind of saved the company in the late 90s, but he was famously, people thought he hated the sports car. It was all about, the Cayenne and then eventually the Panamera. And Tony Hatter said, no, Vita King was great. He knew what his lane was, and he just let us designers do stuff, and they didn't try to be designers. So we just got to hear all of this insight that was special. Touring the archives, and we talked about that. That is the very first official drawing of the Porsche logo, like the actual one. And I know I asked him about the napkin story, and he says, it was rumor. Most likely Max Hoffman sketched something out because this was, I think, in 52. But the person, I knew it was a big deal because Torsten's introducing us to the archives, director of archives, and we're walking around. And when Torsten sees that, he goes, can I take a picture? And Torsten sees all the stuff. And he's like, yeah, sure. But the guy who designed the famous Volkswagen logo, basically did the original drawing for, the final form drawing for Ferry Porsche to approve in the early 50s. And that was the actual drawing. And it had all his notes when Ferry Porsche met with Max Hoffman because he had a secretary and they type everything out. It was, every time I thought it couldn't get better, it did. And
So I don't know if you guys listen to the PCA podcast. You guys should. Listeners, viewers, make sure you're listening to PCA's podcast. They do a great job. So Lee Raskin, who wrote the sort of the definitive book on 550s, was interviewed. Every time I hear him interviewed, and let me just tell you a story about him. So I'm ordering 2 of his books off Amazon, one for me and one for a friend of mine. And he emails me and he said, "Would you like me to through Amazon? Would you like me to autograph the books?" Just sort of rando. It's just so sweet of him to do that. But in any event, he was talking about the fact, Paul, that they did not. There was a lot of debate as to what the actual VIN number was on James Dean's 550, and you actually saw you. I don't want to tell your story for you, but do you have that image of the actual sales receipt from the 550 that supposedly is the last thing he signed before his fateful journey up to the track?
Yeah, that wasn't it wasn't a sales receipt. I'll pull it up in a bit. I thought I had it loaded. It was his SCCA entry to
Hmm.
the race at Salinas that Johnny von Neumann had him fill out just before he left. And the funny thing is, Tomas, who's the head of the archives, and by the way, he's probably in his mid late 30s. He's got a doctorate in history and like library, whatever their version of library science. Not a Porsche guy, not a car guy, but just an insane documentarian. He goes, "This is the last signature," and it's his signature to enter the SCCA race. And I kind of corrected him. I said, "No, his last signature was the speeding ticket or the warning," which I think, Tim, you've probably seen. They made posters of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you sent me that link and I watched that with Lee, I mean, that was interesting because there were so many rumors that have been tossed around, like the whole thing about Barris not actually painting the car, the little bastard and stuff, and the fact that Porsche painted those spears on the fenders because it was probably going to be a Le Mans car, but didn't reach, was too late in the production or being completed. It was, I mean, there was some of it I knew, but a lot of it I didn't. It was
So
fascinating.
I'll give you guys high Porsche nerd knowledge. I'm sure these guys already know it. So we're building a 1-for-1 FIA approved tribute 550, and it's the body. This is my big week news. The alloy body and all the parts, all the bits and the bobs are finally stateside. They were in Denmark before, and the body was being made in England, but it's all being assembled, and supposedly it's going to be done this year. But those darts, the rear fender darts, get this, Paul. Did you know that the rear fender darts from the factory in the 50s had a gold pinstripe from the factory?
I knew it had an accent. I thought it was like black because you got to have something on the border to clean it up. But I didn't.
Right.
I thought they were black.
No, it's gold. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting, right? High nerd stuff. Yeah.
Oh
But
yeah.
in any event, Dave, I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
Oh, I did for Paul. I just wanted to hear more. I wanted to hear a little bit about. I saw pictures of the Fat Man Kai event you went to, which to me, just the background of that, the elevations, the shots, the stuff that you saw there. Plus, just it was like, wasn't this one of their initial events or something? It was just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
I mean, like I was describing, this was sort of like, how Forrest Gump just falls in miraculous situations. This was like our Forrest Gump, Stuttgart, German, Austrian experience. I had already planned, I wanted to go to Fat Mankai, which I equate to a Porsche supported Good Vibes Breakfast Club in their version of the mountains. And it's near the highest peak. It's at like 7,400 feet, ironically, about the same elevation as Newcomb's Ranch. And I just wanted to go see it. I knew it was a cafe. I kept trying to book. There's rooms there you can rent, a few rooms. You can't, but when I was trying to book it, the season's not open and they're closed. I think they open end of May, beginning of June. So we're already a week into the trip, and my friend Torsten sends me a thing saying, "Hey, by the way, they just announced on Friday, the day before we're leaving, they're having their opening season event, and Porsche factory cars will be there, all kinds of crazy stuff." He goes, "I don't know what it is." And I said, "This is great. I had already booked a room over the Glockner Pass on the other side because we were supposed to go to Gamoon, which we didn't. But I didn't want on Friday to have to go up the front side of the Glockner Pass. I wanted to do it the day before and play on the road with less people. So it just happened that we were already there. We were in like an advantageous place because apparently it was so crowded the front way that they were forcing people to park a mile away, which we couldn't do. And then we stopped there on the way there Thursday, met the lady there. She's like, I said, "Hey, my dad's 82. Where can we park?" She's like, "There's like 2 spots. Get here like at 9." We got there at 8. And we were parked kind of in the thick of it, down in here. But it was insane. Like this Type 47, which you know of, I mean, we saw it 3 days earlier in the museum, and they didn't just trailer it all the way there. They trailered it to the bottom of the pass, and they had a parade of these cars going. I think the to get to the pass to the Mankai event was probably 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers, and they were just driving it like a car. And then uh, Ferdy Porsche, he drove his Moon Gem Dakar with it's Moon Gem. I think that's the color they call it. Is that right, Casey? Moon. It's the new version of Moonstone, but it custom done. I mean, he lives in Zell MC, so ZE's for Zell, but he made his own personal plate. The graphics on the side are dark purple. I couldn't really take a good picture because the windows were up, but the inside is lavender as well, which sounds weird, but looks pretty good. And, we got to spend 20 minutes talking to Ferdy Porsche. I mean, the event up there was amazing. The cars, we sat there in these like chairs for 5 hours, just watching cars roll by. Insane stuff. And not just Porsches. There was a Ferrari Challenge car giving people rides up and down the Glockner Pass.
Now,
Which I
did you leave when the 917 and the 963 showed up, or
No,
the
they were there. They were there when we got there, all kind of like lined up along this row here. Um, and the funny thing was, there's three speed cameras on the Glockner Pass, and one of them is right in front of the event, like where that building is. And I mean, it's like where I'm taking this picture is sort of, I told the guy, hey, I'll stand in front of the camera and block it for you guys. But so they're sitting there with this car and is it the 963, the new street car,
yeah.
and they're trying to fix plates onto the front of the cars because if they drive them on the street there, they will have an issue because they'll get ticketed. And when they're Porsche, it's sort of, bad deal. So that picture I sent you or a video yesterday where they were kind of fiddling with the front of the car and it just came back from the mall. It was trying to figure out how to mount this plate to stay on and not drill holes in it.
This would be a good time to let everyone know that our Instagram page, for some reason, the Instagram overlords took it down and now it's basically back in place. So all these pictures and whatnot that Paul's referring to, they will be on the Full Throttle Talk Instagram page. Those of you who are helping us build that page, I apologize for the disruption in service. That's Paul. If you don't mind, if we can take a half step back to RUF, did you actually go on a drive in a RUF?
No, I didn't go on a drive with RUF. I mean, that was one of the things I'm too nervous about driving someone else's car, but it was fortuitous that he was there. Not only he was there, but Estonia and his daughter Aloisa. And we had an hour and a half lunch with him, but I could tell he was really stressed and busy. And this other gentleman from California, he works there 2 months of the year, gave us the tour, named Scott, nice guy. And we finished before lunch just half the tour, and Alois says, "Hey, do you guys want to go to lunch?" We're sure. It's a Greek restaurant a half a mile down the road, and he was shocked we hadn't finished the tour, but we finished it. And here's the original RUF building. The upper left corner is the house Alois grew up in, and the house is still there. And the restaurant we went to is a 100-year-old restaurant that he went to as a kid. I mean, they really knew him, and it was just even when we left, and I felt so guilty for taking his time. He comes running into the parking lot saying, "Hey, you guys didn't say goodbye." And I thought we said goodbye, and he's been on the phone off and on, and he shook our hands, and he was, like I said before, I didn't think we were important enough to get the treatment, but we walked. And I asked him, "Can I take pictures?" He said, "Just hide plates." But this is the end of the CTR. The last few CTRs getting assembled. Aga blue. This is some custom green color. I don't know if I have this is the prototype rodeo, which we saw this is the first rodeo being built for a customer. I can't say what color it is, but it's very disappointing. It's not an interesting color, which it's funny. The head paint guy is up here in the corner. He runs the paint shop, and he was frustrated. And listening to Alois get frustrated that customers don't do what they know that they should do, even and they don't take their advice. But you know, he's at the end of the day, they're paying customers. So
Sepia brown. That's what I'm hearing. No one
yeah,
wants to say it.
yeah, yeah. And
Browns are
actually,
back. Browns are back.
I was joking with Roof because he shows all the Pantone colors. I said you should, if they want green, it should be one. It just should be Roof green, which is a Pantone color, which is very close to Irish green. It's a very
Well, see,
cool
I
color.
didn't know that. So Roof's got his own preferred shade of green. So I didn't realize
Yep.
that's really cool. Huh.
Yeah, and they had one car in there. It was an old like 80 CTR that had been in Japan, got repainted a different color. A customer bought it, shipped it directly to him to have him restore it and put it back to the original color. They just finished a full nut bolt restoration, all new interior. The guy sells it before the car he ever takes delivery of it. The new customer, they just finished the car because we saw it in the upholstery shop. Didn't like the upholstery and they had to redo it again. Now, it was frustrating because he's like, this is perfect. And it was done the way he wanted to do it. I think he recommended the colors. And now the new customers having him redo it. And he's like, what do? They're paying customers. But like I sit there, go, you're Alois Roof. You can say no, like take it or leave it. But he is so customer focused and it truly like the customer is right. And the amazing thing about it, if you haven't been to Roof, it's in Pfaffenhausen, which is rural. It's in the middle of nowhere. They have, I think, 130 employees, insane number of young people, really passionate young people. So I'm thinking, how do you get these young people, and he doesn't pay as well as Porsche or Mercedes or BMW, to come do this and live not in an urban area, but live in the middle of nowhere, the sticks, and work for you, which says something to the kind of the family spirit he has there.
So did this experience change your mindset about the newer cars? I'm not saying you have a bad mindset, but you seem to have more of a passion towards the older cars. Has this shifted at all? Your overarching experience?
Um, Here's the hard part is possibly, but if I bought a new car, I would have to do Sonderwunsch and I couldn't afford it. And Casey, when you were working with Porsche, did you go into their exclusive department in Germany? Did you get to see that?
I so when we went in 16, my wife and I picked up a Macan, and that was when Sonderwunsch was very small, and basically that was sorry, it was summer of 15, so that was when they were finishing up 918 and some other cars. So there were some cars in there getting some special things done, but it's nothing like it is now. Porsche really leaned into it over the past decade because I mean, it's a huge profit center.
Yeah.
Porsche exclusive is, as a dealer, you are one of your key KPIs is how many exclusive options you put on a car, profit, adding up the amount of the options. So they realized Porsche couldn't build more cars, so they needed to make sure that they optimized the cars that they were selling.
Let
So
me
in
just
doing
tell
that,
you, let me offer that the Weissach logo in vinyl that goes on the back of the wing on both sides is an option for $450 for two pieces of vinyl to go on
yeah,
the back. So
yeah, that's
I can tell
nothing,
you that
man.
there's a profit center there for sure.
Sure.
Little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
that's
Paul,
nothing.
by the way, I if you want to order that car, I happen to know a pretty darn good upholstery shop that can take care of all of your exclusive needs. We will customize that car just for you, sir.
I mean,
And
arguably, yeah, go ahead.
well, I was
Sorry.
just say, and I was thinking of you, Dave, because we got to view quite a few different upholstery shops with different, Mercedes and Porsche and Roof and BMW and Classic, and they're like most upholstery shops, old guys. And what was amazing was Roof had five young guys doing the upholstery, one kind of master guy. But when we went to Sunderwich, it was one kind of Geppetto looking dude and one young hot chick. And but it was wild. They were doing the frunks of 992s, kind of a quilted thing, and it's like this weird kind of gypsum board, weird material. and they're doing leather. And he said that part takes a week, one person, one
Wow.
week to upholster that piece. It's the Sunderwich guy was like, this is one of those things we try not to get people to do because it just bottlenecks the upholstery shop. But going back to what Casey said, the Sunderwich part, which obviously I got a tour of, which was between that and the archives, I lost my shit, and it was way better than taking the photos of the area that Larry Chen went to with all the rare cars. This was way better. Sunderwich is probably 100,000 square foot warehouse now. It's across the street, Casey, from where the tourist delivery cars are, and it's the
Yeah.
back end.
Yeah. So it's right near the picture behind your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been
Well,
in
so
there.
so you see this is which is another insane thing. It's the only actual Porsche dealer that's factory owned, and all they sell is used corporate leases, the
Yep.
employee lease cars. And it's this fancy looking Porsche show. It looks just like a Porsche showroom, but you know how usually a Porsche showroom has these cars curated in a perfect like setting. They are lined up like they're going on a ship, and they're all like so. This car here, a lot of them are black and they're ordered way, the Germans love black cars, a lot of cabs, a lot of Macans, but like this one's a color called Sokol Gray. And he said this was a design study to see if they can make it either a PTS available standard color or even a standard color. So it's this weird one-off color that they decided not to do, but you as a German can walk in there and buy it as a CPO car directly from Porsche. Same thing with the green GTS, and then that is a different shade of signal yellow up there. I mean, so Casey, that building, it's built behind that building. And we go
Oh,
back there. There was 4 or 5 cars in different versions of Chroma Flare that they're experimenting with, that weird $100,000 crazy paint
yeah. I'm
job.
I'm not a fan.
I'm not either. The car that I lost my shit over was by the way, I would say half of the cars in the Sunderwich program were STs. Like everyone is customizing their ST.
Yeah, and they
There is
take
an S.
forever to come out.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that'll be
there's
a
an
long
ST
time.
back there that was. It looked like signal orange, and in gold and light yellow, hand painted was the hippie long neck kind of livery on it.
Whoa.
So you know what the hippie 917
Yeah.
looks like with
Yeah.
purple and green. So imagine orange with yellow and gold hand painted on.
There was a 918 in that livery at Platica or something very close. I know that there were two 90 US 918s done in hippie livery. One my buddy Mike in Atlanta did that was traditional, and then there was I think a yellow base color one. But that's all. But that is hand painted is awesome.
Yeah, and there was 2 family cars, both Spyder RSs sitting there in the finishing stages. One of them, the way it was like a livery paint job. It sounds horrible, but it looks like the Partridge Family bus kind of livery. Can you picture the square
Sure.
patches with a thick black outline and like almost like a Modrian kind of painting? The whole front end was that all hand painted.
That's incredible.
And I'm sitting there going, that's probably going to Wolfgang or
Yeah.
yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah, Casey, you would have loved where Sunderwich. In fact, so my friend Torsten, who did the Spirit of 70, he does all the heritage packages. He designed them all since the 918 Spyder. And we saw a door just sitting there with kind of a heritage package, Salzburg livery vibe, but it was all roughed out, like patinaed. And we're asking the guy Roy with Sunderwich, like, what's that? And he goes, I don't know. And we're losing our shit because, like, how cool would it be to do a car where it looks like it was in a barn, kind of like when you patina it out but didn't look fake. It really, I think, what was they were sketching it out. I'm like, clear that shit and put it on a car.
That'd be awesome. What you were talking about interesting upholstery work. The last time I was in Stuttgart, I had a buddy that introduced me to the people at Tech Art. Tech Art is about 25 minutes from Stuttgart, so we went down there. You talk about wild interior work, Dave. There was stuff that looked like the LA Lakers like colors, but 911 turbos, speedsters, just the wildest stuff you have ever seen. And I had never been a Tech Art guy. I know that back in the day, like a lot of the factory parts that they put on 968 Turbo RSs were designed by Tech Art, like the
Hmm.
shielding that goes over the windshield wipers and some of the splitters down. Actually, the splitters on the bottom aren't, but I know that some of the other parts were designed by Tech Art. But it gave me a really great appreciation for that company. And even though aesthetically it's not what I like, but it sounds similar to kind of a German approach to what how do I phrase this to make it nice? It's not like RUF because it's not a manufacturer, but it's a level of personalization that I would tell you fits the different parts of the world a lot more than the United States.
Yeah. And I think, and going back to like when Tim talked about Ferrari a few episodes ago, I think Porsche Sonderwunsch, there is a limit to what they do. And I think people like Tech Art will maybe pick up the slack where Porsche will, if there's something that they think is outrageously poor taste, they won't do it. I mean, I think they have enough business as it is. I mean, they had cars just lined up waiting for whatever. And anything, like if you decide you want a different threshold or a different little trim piece, I think production wise, it seems like a bottleneck. It all has to go through Sonderwunsch. Which,
Yeah, and a thing that they did recently is I remember the first car I did was CXX, which is what Porsche considers special wishes. Was a 2018 GT3. Um, 2018 GT3s come with black scoops on the wing car, come with black scoops on the engine, black under and the unders on the mirrors, and the client wanted those body color. So we did an Irish green paint to sample car. We did the underneath the mirrors and the scoops in the back, and then we did back then you were able to order Pepita inserts without doing a full Special Wishes seat. Full Special Wishes seats, from my recollection, were about 12 grand. You could get just the seat inserts done for about 4,500, which to me sounded kind of like a bargain, especially having Porsche do it. But so that was that. But CXX got so, we talked about paint to sample cars becoming fashionable and those sorts of things. It became so fashionable that Porsche made a minimum spend to even get a car accepted into CXX, at least when I was there, 10 grand. So, like there's all kinds of interesting things. Like Dave, you could get the lettering done, like the RS done in like your favorite color or whatever. You could get the
Sure.
RS logo on the wheels done in signal yellow, but you can't do that until you go above $10,000. So now that's a requirement, as you are likely referring to, Paul, to kind of cure that bottleneck to make it worth their time.
yeah.
Well, we're seeing a lot of customers are coming to us with the inspiration from these new cars, the heritage cars, the turbo. The picture I threw up over my shoulder right now is actually a 991 turbo that a client brought to us to get that new turbo tartan installed in it. And it obviously makes the car just pop amazingly. So we are getting a lot more calls all of a sudden as Porsche is bringing in these heritage designs, the Tartans and the Pepitas and the Pashas and so on, to convert older cars that are maybe one or two, three more model years old to upgrade to these fabrics. And so we
I
can do it and it's executed beautifully.
I want to point out, if you guys are watching on YouTube, Dave actually, and I've not seen anyone do this. This is kind of badass. The door panels, which have the airbags, you also recovered.
Yep.
I've seen tons of people do the inserts. I've never seen anyone do the door panels. So doing the door panels and reupholstering them in that material with not screwing up the airbags, that's got to be some, alchemy and witchcraft.
Well, on a 991, the door panel construction is a single piece and that airbag blows out from the top. And so it's actually kind of hinged and there's got a leather cover over it, in this case, on this particular turbo. So we deconstruct the door panel, have to take the pieces and parts. If you looked on the back of one of these, you'd see a bunch of plastic welds and whatnot. So we deconstruct it, then add the insert and then effectively reapply the covering over it. But you're not really impacting the hinging or the plastic that blows when the airbag deploys. So yeah,
Well,
it's a
cool.
tough thing to do, but it actually in this case it got executed beautifully. My guys were great with this.
It
Looks
looks
awesome.
beautiful. But and again, if you guys are looking for obviously Porsche restoration and incredible upholstery, it's Sunder. Give them a little pitch for yourself, Dave.
Sonderworks, not Sonderwunsch, and that's because I knew no one would be able to spell Sonderwunsch or even say it for that matter. So, but that is the true origin story. It's Sonderworks, which means special factory. It's kind of a loose translation of special factory in German. Sonderworks, WERKS.com, and just shoot us an email or give us a call or on the website. Thank you for
And
the
and a
allow me to plug, Tim.
And a plug for Dave, because even before Dave and I met each other in this capacity, I did a restoration project for a 964 for a very good client of mine. And Dave's guys did the interior. Dave set me on to Relicate, who I think is your leather supplier.
One of
And it
them, yeah.
was a Amazon green 964 93. It was basically a one family owned car with a really gross gray interior. And the client put together a beautiful combination of black and Ferrari Koyo two-tone with square weave carpet at the request of Dave and Rob, Rob has helped me out a ton. Rob's a great guy. So huge props to Dave and the team down there, because even before this, they got my business.
So back to Paul, you're showing now a video of one of the last or one of the most recent special edition Porsches. Are we allowed to be honest about our opinions about the
Oh,
car's
sure,
design?
sure. And the reason I did this was I thought Dave would appreciate it
Oh, I love
because
it.
I talked at length with Torsten about the fabric. Because if you remember when the 50th anniversary Porsche came out and they sort of did houndstooth, but it was like a seatbelt material and it was really, it looked okay, but it felt like garbage. And the things I took away, first of all, I love Pasha. But the amazing thing about this was, Dave, it is soft. It is like cashmere. So
Huh.
I'm kind
Really?
of wondering when you can get that fabric. And then the other thing is, if you notice, the way they did the back of the seat was so cool. I mean, screw painted backs. The way they did the back, and then you see that panel underneath the screens where they put the badge. I
Yep.
mean, like sometimes you'll see the, like 80s car where they just do too much. This sounds horrible, but it actually I think works great. They did the door panel probably like how you were describing, but that panel underneath the screen and the back of the seats were so cool.
You know, it's
I
weird about
happen to love this. Tim, I know you're asking for opinion here. I love this interior. I mean, obviously the color of the outside of the car is green too in this case, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, it's the Neo or Olive Neo, but and there's a couple other things which bummed I didn't take pictures, which Dave you would appreciate. The stripes are on the cloth soft top. It's a convertible.
Oh,
And it's like
sweet.
shadowed stripes, which is you're looking at it and it's one piece, not dyed, but printed, stitched in, and then it has its own unique headliner that looks like a perforated headliner. It's a trip. Like the details that went on this car, I mean, it's personal taste whether you like the car or not. I think of the heritage style cars, and a lot of people don't understand the signal graphics on the front, where it says 911. I think this to me is, I almost wish they put a GT3 engine in it. That's, I think, the big drawback. It would have been
well
great.
the signal graphics were from the mid years, right? For the mid year
Yeah.
911s. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, so
well.
they're doing them by decades. So they did the Targa Heritage, which I guess was, I don't know, I guess that was what, 60s? Maybe, and
Yeah.
then they
Yeah.
did that
Early
throwback, and
60s.
then
Yeah, late
you're at the
60s.
70s now with this one, and who knows what the 80s is going to bring. Hopefully, well, they've already done corduroy. What other, I mean, Porsche script, that would be super dope if they brought back Porsche script to the centers of the seats.
I
That's still
mean,
available. You get
yeah.
that
Yep.
fabric, and I do that a lot on cars.
I mean, I think Porsche realized that they do a lot of special editions, and most of them are a cosmetic makeover. And I think people buy them. I don't know, the long run what the values are going to be. This green was, I love the green. I love the Pasha. I could pass on the convertible. Which, by the way, quick note about convertibles: the Germans love convertibles, and
Hmm.
I saw more convertibles with the top down than I ever see in California. Like if it's not raining, They're driving a convertible with the top down. Um,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, so the Porsche convertible, be it a 718 or any of the 911s, especially the modern cars, there's zero cowl shake. You do not see or hear any freaking shake in those things. They are unbelievable how structured they are with the top down. So yeah, I
Yeah,
can see the Germans
I
liking
think
that.
yeah, but for me, they enjoy great weather. So when they have the good weather, I mean, this was funny. This is Tony Hatter, designer of the 993, his 94 993. You know, theirs came out a year
Mm.
earlier. Um, and when it was like 80, almost 92 degrees when we met up with him. And I was joking that his top was up. I was like, what's the deal with the top up, Tony? He goes, oh, there was a thunderstorm going through Flocked when I was coming over here. And then he parks it. Usually when you park it with the top up and it's hot out, you'll just leave it. He parks it and then lowers the top. And
Hmm.
it's not like he's profiling for anyone. And the funny thing is this 993. So now he works for RUF. So he has fitted all the roof lighting on it. And I'm looking at the gear shift and I'm like, Tony, it's a 5-speed. Did early 993s come with a 5-speed? He goes, no. It was a Tiptronic. I couldn't find a 6-speed, so we just put a 5-speed in. It doesn't really need it. And that was it. And this
That's
is the guy who
hilarious. He
designed the 993. He's
manual
working for
swapped
RUF.
it.
And he
It's
just manual
hilarious.
swapped with a 5-speed which was laying around at the FLB, with leftover Porsche parts. These guys are really funny. I mean, both Dave and Casey would love meeting these guys. Their perspective of it's just like SoCal hot rodding, but they have access and literally everything there. They just catch it before Porsche throws it away.
That's
They'll be like,
crazy.
"What are you doing with
Mm.
that?"
Well, the other vibe I'm picking up from you, Paul, is the way that the Germans treat and use their cars is significantly different than Americans.
I
And I'm
never saw
guilty.
any PPF on any car.
See that's like mind-boggling, honestly.
We're at the track at Nürburgring. I probably saw a dozen RSs, GT3s, about 4 STs, and then they would park in that Nürburgring parking lot after you do your lap. And I would come up to them and I'm kind of feeling the edge of the hood. Brand new STs, all these really, desirable cars, all being used, none of them with PPF.
So the repaint, the original paint, and all that Mickey Mouse doesn't matter if to the Germans come resell, or they just basically figure we're going to use the hell out of them. We don't care.
I
I
mean,
don't.
I don't think so. I mean, we used to sell anything 30 years old. A third of them up until 2013 went to Western Europe, and I remember all they really cared about was rust. They weren't
Hmm.
so rust and mechanicals. They didn't really care like we do in Neurotic about paint finish and originality and all that. I don't know if Casey or Dave ever experienced that, but much easier going.
I don't have much insight there, unfortunately.
So
No
if
one's
there's
easygoing here in the US. They're never easygoing about their paint and finish here in the US.
No.
no,
Well,
that's for
here's one
sure.
for you. All the like I know that on Japanese cars, like if they get a small scratch, I know that they get like fully repainted. Like that's a thing when you get Mizwa imported cars, is that you see like I look after a 968 Club Sport and it was repainted. You can tell because it's about a 90% job, but you can easily tell. But that they get a small scratch and they don't like to blend, they just paint the whole car.
Yep. And you guys will appreciate this is another Porsche leftover. We're going to throw it away. And basically it's a factory cup car, 997. And they backdated it in the most interesting way. They put a 964 air-cooled motor in it and it works.
What?
That's awesome. That's so
What?
cool. That's
Holy
so
cow.
cool.
This
It's
is at
funny.
FLB and it's just parked in front for the Le Mans event. And I saw it in the back warehouse. And it's like they literally just took, sort of like one part at a time. Just we have one of these. I go, no one has backdated the mechanicals of a water cooled car to an air cooled.
So when you say throw away, they're going to throw it away. What does that
Well,
actually?
they have these cars that they can't sell. They don't have VIN numbers. Like there was I think I posted a video and it had a 993 cab chassis, kind of half patinaed, sitting on the wall, like wall art. Like literally the guys at FLB saw it sitting in the back lot and it was a prototype. I think not for like what you think, but maybe they were trying out a door hinge or the way a back cowl piece fit. So it wasn't ever a car and it was just sitting there and they saw it rusty. And finally, after a few years, they're like, hey guys, can we have this? And they have a very interesting relationship, Porsche with FLB. And a lot of the other clubs, like the sailing club, Porsche Employees Sailing Club, they always get jealous because the FLB is sort of the chosen child, but they're kind of doing what Porsche, it's the enthusiasm of it. And they just get access to this stuff. I think the members, there's probably a few hundred members, they're very keen on looking around. Like they see stuff and they're like, hey, you gonna throw that away? Can I have your sandwich?
Well, I mean, we're well over an hour, guys. I could talk the rest of the day. I'm sure some of you guys have to go back to actually earning a living. I do too. But so, Paul, if there's, and it's funny, Casey did a great job putting together a spreadsheet for what we were actually going to talk about. And once again, we never got past the first question, the second question. And I actually put a lot of effort into that spreadsheet, just for the record. Now, granted, it was 2 weeks ago, but so this is not a normal podcast because our normal full throttle talk, because obviously we wanted to hear more about Paul's adventures in Germany. I've never, ever heard anyone having the level of, you know what it is? It's the full throttle talk. That's what got you into all these secret doors and whatnot, of course,
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I didn't even get the whole word, I got full throt, and they just threw things at it.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I could hear these stories forever, and it's incredible. And we didn't even talk that much about the rest of your experiences in the archives. We didn't talk about some of the experiences with RUF and the assembly process. I have so many more questions I'd just love to have answers to. And maybe we can hold them off to the next show. It's really up to you guys and obviously our listeners. A lot, when we're making this podcast, we're always thinking to ourselves, well, who's the listener? The listener is the four of us. But the listener is someone who's going on a long drive. He's on an exercise, or he's exercising, or she's exercising. They're, taking care of their car, whatever it is. And so I like to end today. Casey, what's something that you heard Paul talk about today that you found particularly interesting, or that you did not previously know, or maybe would like us to focus more on on one of the upcoming shows?
Well, going back to Paul's last appearance, and something that Paul didn't get into today, I would like to hear his comparison between Mercedes production and Porsche production.
That'd be awesome. I'd love that too.
Very different. Very different.
Smoking closets.
I would like to know how Paul managed to pull this whole logistical piece off.
Me
Because
too.
it seemed to me, based on the pictures I saw, this thing felt like it was German timing. I mean, though you had it all planned from arrival through departure. How did you pull it all together? I mean,
Well, my
how
last
many
name is
calls did you have to make? How many emails did you have to send? It just looked like it was just a true dream trip.
my last name is Kramer, and even my dad was like, why are we drilling down so far? And I just literally saw this as this narrow window, and I wanted to suck the marrow out of the trip, and I didn't want to have any regrets, which I didn't. And it was a combination of, it was a lot of planning, and it was really hard to plan. I mean, the reason we were supposed to go last October and we delayed it because I realized how hard it was going to be to plan and the access to stuff. And a lot of it luck, but the biggest part was just people and friends that reached out. I mean, the roof access was because we hung out with Tony Hatter, and he's like, I can't be there, but like, and then the fact that the roof family, their trip was canceled. Um, I met a friend from LA who's living in Austria, and she connected us with a bunch of stuff, and that's how we met Hans Peter Porsche and got to see this. We even get into the Austrian part of with the rally in Salzburg, which is insane. So it I knew that I had to leave some flexibility, but plan key areas to be in, and then also with some health stuff, we couldn't do museums every day. It would be a museum day and a driving day, museum day and a driving day. Like we had to take a break. But and there's I want to spend more time in Austria, and I want to hit the northern part of Germany. I want to go to Wolfsburg and Berlin and Cologne and maybe see F1 in Spa. I mean, but I'll tell you one thing, that country is made for people who drive by people who drive.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the Autobahn. I want to hear about your Autobahn experiences.
We'll talk about that because that honestly was probably my favorite. We saw a lot of shit, but oh man, the Autobahn. So good.
But you know what you're speaking to when I was hearing you talk, Paul, is people obviously know, love, and trust you, and they want to, people are, trying to make you have a really great experience with whatever influence they could apply. But also it speaks to the Porsche community, the enthusiast community, the way it's an international type thing. I can say this confidently. There is no other brand that has so much just appeal to different people of different demographics, of different ages, of different types of everything. I mean, that's the thing that's magic about the brand. I don't know how Porsche did it over the generations, but they really have. And it's just so welcoming. Listen to the experience that you're having. That's not look. So, in the Ferrari world, you don't have experiences like that. You just don't. There's many, many, many layers of, red ropes that you have to basically be able to get through before you even have an experience at that level. And even at that, it's not like what you described. So, it's magical. That's the cool thing about Porsche that I think, frankly, it is something that if you could figure out a way from a marketing perspective to try to explain how other businesses could do it, you could make $1 trillion instantly. And so that you're now showing us a
Type 47. I mean, it's 3 of them in the world. And the fact that it was in the museum and, it's now 100 miles away or 300 miles away, 2 days later and being driven on the Glockner Pass.
So wasn't that car made in the 40s, like a 48 or something?
Before that, 30s.
Yeah, I
Oh
think it was a
my
moon
gosh.
car.
Seriously, that car was pre-war?
This was basically,
I didn't know that.
remember the one, there was the auction car that was controversial, the black one?
Yeah.
And then the bidding got messed up. It was at Monterey a few years ago. There's a few of these cars, and this one was the one in the museum. And I wish I could remember because I took the museum tour with my friend Torsten, telling me like the real story of the pink pig, real story. Like, is there a real story? But going back to what you said, Tim, it's basically passion. I mean, it sounds cliche, sounds trite, but Porsche people and the difference between going to what Casey said with the factories, Mercedes and Porsche, you can just see that Porsche is so passion related. There you go, Casey. So yeah, 000 is like homework.
Casey, you have to talk or they won't be able to see you. So
No,
Casey,
that was the first episode, the first issue of 000 magazine is called Prototype. And luckily I was a subscriber back then, but there's a big story on that car in the first issue of that magazine, which is great.
yeah, it's awesome. Dave, you want to wrap up today? Anything you'd like to say to folks as they round the bend? Because, this is going to be, obviously we're building momentum into the next show to talk more about Porsche. Anything you'd like to say you're looking forward to? I wrote down 2 things. I'd love to get more information on the GT2 RS, which I'm hoping you can maybe picked up some little breadcrumbs. And also the new Porsche hypercar. That's sort of an interesting little story, Porsche getting sidelined as far as what they're actually going to produce. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's there you go. But for me, I actually want to debate a little bit about some of these choices for the car that I've ordered before we lock it in, of course. Certainly I can have some of that offline with Casey, I'm sure. But
well, why don't you guys
can
do that offline and we'll debate
Yeah.
on the next podcast.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, figure out what your V210 date is. They'll know what that means.
Lock date.
I think it's about 10 days out from right now. I think I
Uh-oh.
was told.
Send me your build code over, Dave, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Sure,
Yeah,
you got
we'll
it.
talk about that next show. Well, that is Full Throttle Talk for the week. Thank you for joining us. And again, sorry for the disruption on Instagram. And if you're not watching Paul's videos and looking at his pictures from his travels, make sure you are paying attention on Instagram. We're going to get all that updated as fast as we can. In the meantime, if you're over on YouTube, please do like and subscribe. Continue to support this podcast. We're doing all this because we enjoy doing it primarily, but also we're doing all this for you. So if you have the opportunity, please do share, obviously like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and share share the show with as many people as you can. In the meantime, guys, thank you. Have a brilliant week. We'll talk next Wednesday.
Yep.
See you
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Have a
See you
great
later.
week. Bye.